What's up, my fellow Cleftones? Darren from ClefToneGrooves.com, and this week we're going to talk about compression. Well, another week down, and I hope yours was as productive as mine was. But this week's video I thought would be especially fitting after we talked about levels last week, because using compression is one way to even out your levels throughout your recording, as well as get a little extra gain on your overall sound. So let's go ahead, jump back into Studio One, and take a look. Here I have a track all ready to go, and I've already grabbed a compressor because I know I'm going to be using it later. But first, let me explain what a compressor does. When you hear Beyoncé singing on a track, there's times where she's singing very softly, and then there are times where she gets really loud and powerful with her voice. But if you really pay attention, while her volume may seem like it's increasing, it's really not increasing by as much as you think. And that's because the compressor is keeping her levels in check. And that's what compressors do. They give you a more consistent level throughout your entire recording. So here I have Studio One's stock compressor loaded. And by the way, all DAWs usually come with stock plugins like compressors and EQs. So this is Studio One's compressor. Now let me explain the controls here. Let's start with the ratio. The ratio is how much compression is applied, and in this case, it's 2:1. So what that means is the level of your recording has to exceed the threshold by 2 decibels in order for the compressor to allow it to go over the threshold by 1 decibel. Clear as mud? Let me explain it another way. So our threshold here is -15. We have a 2:1 decibel, or a 2:1 ratio, excuse me. That means that in order for your compressor to allow your audio to reach -14, your level actually has to get up to -13 in the original audio. That way the compressor will allow it to go up to -14. So that's how it reduces the dynamic output of your original audio. So another example, for instance, is if this ratio here was set at 6:1, in order for that compressor to allow your audio to get up to -14, then your original audio would have to be 6 decibels over the threshold of -15. So it would have to reach -9 in order to get to -14. So I hope that helps you get a better understanding of what the ratio is. And then we kind of just talked about the threshold, but that's like the trigger. That's where when the level reaches -15, it tells the compressor, activate and clamp down on the audio and keep it from getting too much louder. Again, reducing the various dynamics in your audio, providing that consistent level overall. And then looking at the knee, this is how hard or soft you want the angle to be on the line here that's diagonal in the graph. And so if you have a soft knee, as you saw how that angle kind of disappeared there, then that introduces gain reduction gradually. And a hard knee does the opposite. So let me show you. There's the hard knee. You can see more of an angle on that line there. Now, softer knees are usually preferred because they're more transparent in sound. In other words, this helps with reducing the effect of hearing your compressor work. Now, your input gain is for you to adjust how much of your original signal is being fed into the compressor, which also affects how the compressor reacts as well. And then your makeup gain right next to it here is what helps you to put back some of the level that you lose from the gain reduction that is introduced by the compressor when it's reducing your dynamics. And then your attack and your release can both be adjusted to make the compressor clamp down on the audio fast and release fast, or the opposite is true, that you can make the compressor react very slowly to the audio that is being fed through it. So now, let's record and see what we can do with the compressor afterwards. I am now recording audio to test out the compressor. I will talk softly now. And now I will speak loudly, and then I will return to my normal volume. Now I'm going to play this back and then make some adjustments on the compressor to visually demonstrate what it does to your waveforms. So let me unmute this track here, and let's play it back. I am now recording audio to test out the compressor. I will talk softly now. And now I will speak loudly, and then... So there you could see the compressor work just a little bit. But what I'm going to go ahead and do now is make some adjustments here. And these adjustments are fairly extreme in nature, but it's just to show you what it does to your overall volume on your waveforms here. So now what I'm going to do so you can see a visual representation of this is I'm going to bounce this track down, and I'm going to check import to track. So you see how my waveforms look here, but now let's see what it looks like with this compression applied. So now if you look at this rendered waveform, notice at the same point in time where I spoke loudly, it's very, very consistent, right? It looks the same as this next section, the same as the sections before it as well. So now, let me go ahead and try one more thing here. So now we see what compression can do if you use a lot of it. Notice how the levels are slammed to the max. In fact, we saw that I had that clipping warning. Remember, we talked about clipping in our levels video last week. We don't want clipping in our audio. But yet that's what happened when we misapplied the compression. But I just wanted you to see the effect that this had on the audio. Here, a little bit more dynamic. Here, it's all the same level exactly, slammed to the max. And that's also something that you don't want a whole lot of when you're doing dialogue. So let me go ahead and erase that. And now I will try to dial in some compression to taste and use just a nice bit of it to get a nice overall consistent level and boost the volume just a little bit on my levels here. And I've gone ahead and just removed that old compressor that I was using before just to kind of keep things simple for you. And I'm just going to start fresh and drop a new compressor on the level here. And while I dial this one in, I'm also going to set my loop points just so it just repeats so I can listen to it as I work with it. So here we go. I am now recording audio to test out the compressor. I will talk softly now. And now I will speak loudly, and then I will return to my normal volume. I am now recording audio to test out the compressor. I will talk softly now. And now I will speak loudly, and then I will return to my normal volume. I am now recording audio to test out the compressor. I will talk softly now. And now I will speak loudly, and then I will return to my normal volume. I am now recording audio to test, and now I will speak loudly, and then I will return to my normal volume. So I got my audio to sound pretty good to me where I've got my compressor set now. And notice the moves that I was making were pretty conservative, and that's because you don't really want to hear the compressor working in most cases. Now, some people have used them as an effect in their music, but for the most part, you usually want your compression to be transparent and natural sounding. And also another little tip for you here is the compressors and other plugins in most DAWs come with presets. And so that's kind of a nice little go-by that you can use as a starting point to dialing in your sound. And that's kind of what I did here. You don't want to lean on the presets like they're a crutch and just go to that and keep it. But what you want to do is see where they might set it for a male vocal, and then you can kind of adjust from there and get what you need. And now actually I've just changed my levels and everything again from what I had. But anyway, I use that preset in order to kind of zero me in or get me in the ballpark, and then I make minute adjustments from there to get me sounding the way that I want. I want you to keep in mind that some of the examples I showed you today using compression were a little extreme in nature. Normally, you wouldn't wield a compressor in that way. I was simply trying to show you how compressors affect your waveforms when you're working with them in your DAW. But, as you also saw me demonstrate, a compressor wielded properly can add an overall professional flair to your sound. So that's what I have for you folks this week. Stay tuned for next week's video, and here's to getting better audio at home.